More than 100 years ago, Titans began to eat people. To save themselves from them, people erected 3 walls: Mary, Rose, and Sin. Thanks to this, they have been living quietly for 100 years. The main character's name is Eren Yeager. She and her half-sister named Mikasa Akiraman live in Shiganshina, which is separate from the gates of Maria, and this is done as a bait to delay the Titans if something happens. Their father's name is Grisha, and he is famous for the fact that during the epidemic that threatened the whole city, he was able to find a cure and save many lives, for which everyone was grateful to him. But since there were no problems in the city after that, people relaxed a lot, and even the members of the garrison, who are supposed to watch the walls and protect them, just spent their time drinking. Eren did not like this very much because he believed that let everyone live in peace now. This does not mean that it will continue to be like this, so everyone should be ready. And since they just enjoy life, Eren decides to join the Reconnaissance Corps. This is a guild whose task is to go beyond the walls of the city and look for ways to fight the Titans. However, no matter how much they went there, they could not achieve much progress. Mikasa told her parents about the desire of her brother, who, for obvious reasons, were not happy about this. Mom immediately forbade Eren to enter there. But the father understood that if his son strongly desires something, then it will be impossible to prevent this. And Grisha himself goes on a business trip outside the city walls. Meanwhile, Eren, Mikasa, and Armin think about how to get out of the walls. However, not everything is so simple, because their king forbade people to go further than they should. While they were discussing the reasons for this, their 50-meter walls are attacked by a colossal titan, which kicks through the gate, thus making the passage for the Titans smaller. All the inhabitants immediately began to run away. However, Eren's mother remained in the house, so he and Mikasa ran to look for her. Due to the fact that the house broke down, their mother was overwhelmed. Let the children try to save her, they failed to lift the bars. And since they refused to leave her, they are taken in by a member of the garrison guild named Hez. Due to the fact that they left their mother, she is eaten by a titan. He took them to a ship that would take them inside the walls of Mary. However, out of nowhere, an armored titan appeared, which with a run made it pass through the wall of Maria, which means that the Titans will be able to go there. Those who managed to survive as refugees went beyond the Rose Wall. But due to the fact that there were too many of them, there was a problem with food. All the refugees were sent to work the land, but even then there was still not enough food. Then the following year, the government decided to send almost 25,000 refugees to defend the walls of Mary. But after the operation, which was unsuccessful, a little more than 100 people returned. However, this sacrifice allowed, albeit not completely, but still to solve the problem with food. A year after these events, the protagonist decides to join a cadet school, where they were to be made warriors, who would then join one of the 3 guilds. The military police are considered the most elite because their task is to protect the king in the inner walls. Since this is the safest place, it is everyone's dream to enter there. However, only the top 10 graduates can do this. A cadet school instructor named Chardis began the initiation stage, the essence of which is to intimidate applicants so that they understand in advance what they are getting into. However, he didn't do this with everyone. For example, he didn't touch Eren because his face showed what he went through. So somehow it makes no sense to intimidate him and the rest. During this initiation, the instructor noticed Sasha, who stole a hot potato from the kitchen and ate it right in front of him, for which Chardis deprived her of lunch and sent her to run for 5 hours. Also, those who during the initiation showed themselves insecure, he sent home. During dinner, everyone around started asking Eren what it was like to be in the middle of a Titan attack. There he meets Jean, who immediately falls in love with Mikasa. His goal is to join the military police in order to live within the inner walls and protect himself from the Titans. At the same time, Eren has a completely different goal. He wants to join the Reconnaissance Corps in order to single-handedly kill all the Titans. However, despite the big words, during their first test, the essence of which was to master the UPM, against the background of the rest, he showed himself as badly as possible. Then he asked Mikasa and Armin to train him. However, their explanations did not help him, and he rolled over, hitting his head. Since he could be sent home due to failure, Eren began to ask for help from those who successfully passed the test, during which he met Reiner and his best friend Berthold. They cannot help him, but instead, they encourage him in every possible way so that he passes everything on the second test. During the retest, Eren is lifted into the air. but after a short pause, he fails again. However, Sharnus asked one of the cadets to exchange belts with him. Then they lifted up into the air again. This time, Eren passed the test without difficulty. It turned out that his failures were due to a broken belt. Those who entered began hard training, during which they were evaluated. Mikasa was considered the most capable, and Eren was appreciated for his diligence, thanks to which he achieved a lot. Armin was not the strongest physically, but during the theoretical training, he showed himself from the best side. As a result, 218 cadets graduated from the school, and Mikasa and Eren were in the top 10, which gave them the opportunity to join the military police. However, despite this, Eren still wants to join the Reconnaissance Corps, telling the others that they were taught in the school to destroy the Titans. However, those who do it best are, on the contrary, alienated from the Titans, hiding them behind the wall of sinew. His speech made many think. Therefore, those who initially wanted to join the military police went to the Reconnaissance Corps after Eren. Mikasa and Armin, who did not want to leave him alone, also wanted to go there. But as soon as they graduate and begin to protect the walls of the Rose, they are attacked by a colossal Titan, which, like 5 years ago, breaks through the gate and gives the rest of the Titans away inside. Having met a colossal Titan, Eren wanted to destroy him and therefore attacks. But instead of fighting him, the colossal Titan simply breaks a huge portion of their weapons. And this means that unlike ordinary Titans, a colossal Titan is sentient. Appearing out of nowhere, he disappears exactly the same way, and since he appeared, then there is a possibility that an armored Titan will also appear, which will make a passage into the inner walls of the Rose. Therefore, now the task of people is to evacuate civilians as quickly as possible and try to destroy as many Titans as possible, protecting the walls of the Rose. Mikasa was sent to the elite squad to help civilians, while Eren and the rest of the graduates were divided into groups to fight the Titans. Titans do not have a mind, they are driven only by instincts. They look like men, but they do not have the necessary body parts. They don't eat animals, they only target people. But the fact that they lived outside the walls for many years and did not eat people, proving that they have no need for food, which means that they eat people for the sake of extermination. If you decapitate a Titan, he will restore his head within 2 minutes. However, this does not mean that they are immortal. The back of the neck is a weak point, and if it is damaged, then he simply will not have time to restore it. Eren, along with Armin in the same group, went to battle with the Titans. But along the way, one of them is immediately eaten by one of the Titans. Under the influence of emotions, Eren wanted to avenge his comrade. But while he was getting to the offender, another Titan injures his leg, after which the Titans begin to eat his partners. When only he and Armin survived, the latter is attacked by a Titan, but Eren saves him through pain. True, for this he himself is eaten, leaving only his hand as a keepsake. Meanwhile, residents who were fleeing the city faced a problem. One of the local chiefs blocked the retreat route, trying to get his wagon there. No one could stop him because he was protected by his guards. Since they were there for too long, they are found by one of the Titans, who immediately attacks them. But coming up in time, Mikasa managed to save them. And then, under the threat of destruction, she forced the local chief to remove the wagon and let the civilians through. After that, she remembers her childhood. Her parents were waiting for Grisha, who was supposed to conduct a routine medical examination. But instead of him, bandits broke into them, who first destroyed her parents and then took her with them to sell to rich, bad people. When Eren and Grisha arrived at the place, they found only traces of beatings. Grisha went for the military police and ordered Eren to go to a safe place and wait for him. But instead, he went after Mikasa. After destroying one of the bandits, Eren copes with the second in the same way, thereby saving Mikasa. It turned out that there were 3 bandits, so it was Mikasa's turn to rescue Eren. After a considerable time, the military police and Grisha arrived, who began to scold Eren for not listening to him and risking his life. Since Mikasa had nowhere to go, Grisha invites her to live with them. Because of what happened to her, Eren became the most precious person to her. But when she learned from Armin that Eren was eaten by a Titan, she wanted to satisfy her pain by destroying the Titans. But there was another problem. The resupplies who were resupplying the VPM gas were surrounded by the Titans, making it impossible for the cadets to fight, as many of them were eaten simply because they couldn't fly away. Those who survived decided to save the supplies. But on the way there, Mikasa runs out of gas. And left without the main equipment, Mikasa was attacked by a Titan. Initially, she wanted to give up, but remembering the words of Eren, who told her to fight no matter what, she decides to do so. But suddenly, from behind her back, Mikasa is saved by another Titan, who, after a blow, furiously finishes off his opponent. From there, Armin takes her to the roof, where he, along with another cadet named Connie, watches this Titan destroys another Titan using hand-to-hand combat. After looking at this, Armin offers to use this Titan for his own purposes. He wants to bring him to the supplies so that he destroys the surrounding Titans. Jean had already managed to get there, who took over the leadership and brought the surviving cadets to the place. But when they arrived, they were attacked by the Titans, although they were destroyed by the allied Titan. Armin reveals his plan to save the supplies. They have 7 5-meter Titans, but they don't have gas to fight them, so they offer to blind them with weapons and destroy them by attacking from a height. Their plan worked almost perfectly, but the Titan Sasha attacked had to be destroyed by the team. Having freed the supplies from the Titans, the cadets replenished the gas reserves. But while they were cranking out their plan, other Titans attacked the allied Titan, who surrounded him and began to eat. Mikasa wanted to save him, but did not have time to do this because when this Titan saw the Titan that attacked Eren's squad, he attacked him without hands and destroyed him by attacking a weak spot. However, after that, he fell exhausted, and from a place that is considered weak by the Titan, an unconscious Eren appeared, whose limbs even recovered, which means that it was he who saved everyone. But despite this, everyone considered that he still posed a danger, and therefore it was decided to surround him and then destroy him. But this was hindered as best they could by Armin and Mikasa, who promised to destroy anyone who approached them. However, the captain still gave the order to attack them. At that moment, Eren remembers that he became like this because of the experiments of his father, who injected him with substances that caused Eren to erase his memories. But he also remembers that his father gave him the key to the basement of their house, where he was supposed to reveal many secrets. Remembering this, Eren grabs his friends, and turning into a weakened version of the Titan, saves Armin and Mikasa. The body of the Titan he had escaped from, like the bodies of the other destroyed Titans, began to evaporate. Eren takes advantage of this and asks Armin to go out to the soldiers and try to convince them. He did so, saying that they could use the power of Eren for the benefit of mankind, thanks to which they could exterminate the Titans. However, the captain was not convinced by the words, and he still ordered them to be destroyed. However, Pixis, one of the main officers of the garrison, prevented this. He climbs the wall with the guys and listens to Armin, who offers to close the hole in the city wall with a huge cobblestone with the help of Eren. To their surprise, he agreed with them, and immediately called all the soldiers to announce the plan. According to the plan, Eren turns into a Titan and, using his body, blocks the hole with cobblestones. Other Titans will interfere with this, so the task of the soldiers is to drive as many Titans as possible into a corner and detain them to the maximum. With Eren, the elite squad will go, the task of which is to protect him from the rest of the Titans. Because of this mission, a lot of soldiers will die, and therefore Eren is responsible for fulfilling this mission and saving humanity. Because if the Titans break the Rozu wall, then people will have to hide behind the Sinew walls. However, only half of the total population can live there. Eren and the elite squad reached the cobblestone. After that, Eren turned into a Titan by biting his finger. But as soon as he did, he immediately attacked Mikasa. In an attempt to destroy her, Eren knocks himself out, which puts the task at risk. But despite his lack of control, the squad decided to protect him anyway, because the Titans, who were very much attracted by Eren, were just approaching them. Unlike the last time, when Eren's Titan instantly recovered from all sorts of injuries, this time this did not happen, and he simply sat unconscious. And while they were fighting, Armin ran up to them, who attacked Eren in a weak spot, trying to wake him up and restore his sanity. Thanks to this, Eren proceeded with the original plan, and all the other soldiers were ordered to protect him with their lives. The mission was successfully completed, and Eren completely blocked the gate. True, after that he was completely exhausted, but he was saved by Captain Levy from the Reconnaissance Corps, who did not fight from the very beginning, since they went on an expedition before the attack of the Titans. For this, a lot of soldiers were destroyed or badly injured, because of which the threat of an epidemic reappeared in the city. After completing the task, Eren received considerable injuries, and when he woke up, he was locked in the basement under the supervision of Captain Levy and his commander Erwin. It turned out that they know about the basement in his house and that he became a Titan because of Grisha. Despite the fact that Eren is a huge threat, as the attack on Mikasa proves, Levi decides to take him into the Survey Corps under his own responsibility. Not all people were happy that the Titan Eren became their ally, and the inhabitants living behind the wall of Sinew considered that poor people could unite with the Titan and attack them, and therefore it was necessary to solve the problem in advance and destroy Eren. But it will be Darius Zackley who will decide his fate, the supreme commander who controls all the guilds. Because of Eren, a special military trial will take place, at which Darius must decide whether to give him to the Reconnaissance Corps so that they try to recapture the Wall of Maria with his strength, or send him to the military police, where they will immediately destroy him and examine his body. During the trial, Eren lost his temper and started yelling at the military police that they are cowards who are hiding from the Titans, and if they do not want to sacrifice themselves, then let Eren do it. However, he is interrupted by Levi, who begins to attack him powerfully, thereby educating him, and showing the judge that even though Eren is a monster, Levi is able to destroy him at any moment, which means that the benefit from him will be clearly greater. Such a move helped them, and the judge decided to send Eren to the Reconnaissance Corps for a test mission. If they can recapture the Wall of Maria, then Eren will be left alive, and if he cannot show his best side and fails the task, he will be destroyed. Eren will be in the Special Forces unit, and Levi's squad in another way. Under his supervision, they will live in the old castle. This is all the idea of Erwin, who had a plan from the very beginning, the truth of which he hides. The only thing known is that in 30 days they will go on a test expedition for rehearsal before the main mission. Together with them, recruits will go, including Armin and Mikasa, as well as Jane, who from the very beginning dreamed of getting into the military police, but because of everything that happened, he changes his mind. It also turns out that Hange, the major of this guild, has her own Titans, on which she conducts experiments, which allowed people to learn a lot about the biology of Titans. But one morning, someone destroyed them, which made Hange incredibly upset, because these two Titans were of great value. Despite the fact that it is not a crime to destroy the Titans, the people who destroyed these particular Titans were put on the wanted list, because of them Hange's experiments were ruined. The recruits arrived at the castle, where they were met by Eren, who, unlike them, had already joined the intelligence service. Armin, Mikasa, and the others were given uniforms with the guild's logo on them, depicting wings to signify their freedom. After their initiation, the entire guild went on an expedition. According to Erwin's plan, the whole team should set up a formation in the form of a semicircle at the same distance from each other. If suddenly a comrade is not visible from behind the surface, then he must transmit his messages with the help of a signal pistol. Red smoke means that a Titan has been spotted, and the soldier who spotted this signal must also send it in order to be seen by the other part of the formation. And with the help of these messages, Erwin decides to change the route in order to get to the goal without meeting the Titans. And he does this using a green signal, thanks to which all the formations know where to go. But there are times when a squad meets a deviant. This is a kind of Titans who have a highly developed ability to find their victim. In this case, a black flare is fired. However, at some point, the right wing of the formation met a Titan, who simply bypassed everyone in a row and ran to the very center, where Eren is now, namely in the safest place. Armin tried to stop her, but she was stronger and attacked his entire team. However, she did not destroy it, because when she saw that it was not Eren, she simply ran further to the center. Because of this, Armin deduces that this Titan is the same person and has the same ability as Eren. Behind her, this Titan led other Titans, who completely destroyed the right wing of the formation. Jean, Armin, and Rainer tried to stop her. However, she, unlike other Titans, defended her weak spot, because they could not do anything to her. Due to a looming threat, Erwin directs a formation into the forest of tall trees. However, only soldiers from the center should go inside. The rest are forced to run around this forest. Armin and the others were ordered to stay near the entrance to the forest and stop the Titans. But they didn't even have to fight them because of the height of the trees, the Titans could not get them. Meanwhile, this Titan catches up with Levi's squad, but instead of fighting her, Levi orders them to simply ride forward, despite the fact that many soldiers will die because of this. But it turns out that this was all Erwin's plan, thanks to which they catch the Titan alive. Levi stayed with Erwin, while Eren was ordered to run to safety with his team. Before she was caught, the Titan managed to close her weak spot with her hands, which Levi tried to attack. However, she has the ability of an armored Titan, allowing her to strengthen parts of her body. They could not penetrate it with conventional weapons, so it was decided to use explosives. But as soon as the Titan heard about this, she began to scream furiously, because of which the Titans who were standing at the entrance to the forest immediately ran inside. And when they got to her, they began to eat her. The soldiers, on the contrary, tried to save her, but they did not succeed. Using the Titan's body steam, the girl escapes. Erwin decides to retreat back to the base, informing the others by using a blue flare. The capture of this Titan was Erwin's original task, but when drawing up a plan, he took into account only the strength of Eren, which is why they failed to catch her. He also comes to the conclusion that they have a traitor in the guild, because of which he hid his plan. It was because of this traitor that the girl destroyed the experimental Titans, and right now she is chasing Eren, destroying one of the team along the way and turning back into a Titan. Eren was ordered to run because the remaining fighters would deal with her. However, she simply destroys them. Then Eren, using the power of the Titan, decides to fight her. But even in a weakened state, the Titan is stronger, and therefore she puts his body in her mouth and runs away with him. However, Mikasa and Levi flew to the sounds of their battle, who noticed that the Titan was very tired from all the battles. While Mikasa distracted this Titan, Levi attacked her and wounded her so that she could not defend herself in any way, but during the battle he injured his leg. They had a chance to destroy her. But Levi said that the mission was more important, so they just take Eren and go back behind the walls. The losses from the operation are so great and unjustified that the guild was deprived of support, and Erwin and those involved were summoned to the capital, where Eren was to be destroyed. The military police, including Annie, who studied at the academy along with the heroes, were ordered to escort the convoy, which will include a reconnaissance corps. But while they were doing it, Annie called Armin, who asked for help. He wanted her, using the title of a police officer, to lead them inside, where they were supposed to escape. To distract the authorities, Jean was dressed as Eren. When the guys got to the place, they had to go down to the basement, where they could go to the outer gate. However, Annie did not want to go there because she thought it was strange that no one was around. It turned out that they initially knew that Annie was the Titan, and therefore they wanted to take her to the basement so that she could not take the form of a Titan there. But instead, Annie wanted to be a Titan on the street. However, the soldiers prevented her from doing so. But she still managed to transform with the help of her ring, which means that she understood from the very beginning that this was a trap. Eren, Mikasa, and Armin ended up in the basement where Eren was supposed to become a Titan in order to fight Annie. However, he could not do this because a specific goal was needed for the transformation, and Eren could not believe that Annie was a Titan. It was dangerous to stay like that. Armin and Mikasa decided to go to the surface to distract Annie. However, at that moment she breaks through the basement and severely injures Eren. Everyone already knew that there was a Titan in the city, but the military police did not want to risk their lives. They also began to threaten Erwin with destruction, as his plan led to this. However, he was not afraid of destruction, but simply asked the chief of the military police to bring his plan to the end. They also did not want to take responsibility, so they decided to just grab him for now. Meanwhile, Eren realizes that if he does not discard his humanity, then all his friends will die, and therefore still turns into a Titan and attacks Annie. However, she proved to be stronger again and powerfully attacked Eren. From this he went berserk, and the absence of limbs did not prevent him in battle. To save herself, Annie tried to climb over the wall, but Mikasa injured her fingers, causing the Titan to fall to the ground, where Eren finally finishes her off. But at the last moment he hesitated, and Annie managed to cover herself with an impenetrable crystal. As a result, the call of the guild was postponed, and Annie was transferred to the reconnaissance corps in the basement. Meanwhile, Erwin said that it was time for the humans to attack. It turns out that all the walls behind which people are hiding are made of Titans. This is known to a priest named Nick, who asks the soldiers to close the Titan immediately before the sun comes up. He did not want to talk about this, and even more so did not begin to explain why he knew that the walls were made of Titans, but did not tell anyone about it. In addition, news comes to them that the Titans have made a hole in Rose's wall. Erwin immediately gathered an army and ordered to advance to the place of the breakthrough. They took a priest with them in the hope that, seeing how sad the state of their lands was, he would agree to tell about what he knew. Armin and Hange figured out exactly how the walls were made. She discovered that the material that Annie covered herself with and the wall debris had a similar structure, which means that the titans that are in the walls covered themselves with this material and became walls. In order to seal up the hole in Rose's wall, Erwin is ordered to cover himself with this material upon arrival at the site, thereby closing the hole. When they get to the city, Levi shows Nick the people who are homeless. He did this in order to put pressure on the priest, so that he would still talk about the walls. His plan worked, but not completely. Nick still refused to talk about the walls and the titans, but he talked about the girl, because of which he and other members of the cult were ordered to be silent. It turns out that the cause is Krista, a cadet of the 104th Corps, who is constantly watched by Ymir from the same corps. She protects her from everything, and even wanted to give her the right to join the military police, but Krista wanted to go to the intelligence corps. By this time, the Titans had already reached the place where the members of the 104th Cadet Corps are now located. They were kept there unarmed to see if there were Titans among them, but plans had to be changed. Each of them was given a horse so that they could notify the nearest villages about the attack of the Titans. It turns out that Sasha and Connie know these lands very well, because their village is located nearby. The squad broke up into groups to notify everyone as quickly as possible, and their leader named Mike remained to distract the Titans. It is believed that in the entire Reconnaissance Corps, only Levi is stronger than him. Since Mike is a very strong fighter, he easily dealt with some of the Titans, thereby gaining time. After that, he was already about to retreat, but at that moment an animal-like Titan attacked his horse, who grabbed it and threw it at Mike, because of which he fell right on the Titan, who grabbed him and began to eat. However, this Titan was stopped by a beast Titan. It turns out that he can speak, and therefore began to ask Mike about his weapons. But because of the shock, he could not answer him, so this Titan took his OPM and just left, but before that he ordered the other Titans to eat him. Meanwhile, Sasha reached her village. However, she did not find anyone there except for a Titan who was eating a woman in front of her daughter. Sasha tried to save her, but she failed to do so. So she took the girl in order to at least save her. But when they wanted to get on the horse, she got scared and ran away. At this point, the Titan had already finished eating the woman and was about to proceed to Sasha and the girl, who had to run away. Sasha ordered the girl to leave her while she tried to damage the Titan's eye with arrows and buy time. She managed to do this because in the past she was a hunter. After that, she ran to look for the girl and stumbled upon her father, who, along with the villagers, found this girl. They ran around the houses and handed out horses so that the inhabitants could escape. It was they who found her horse and helped her return to her squad. Connie's village was less fortunate, and when they arrived at the place, they did not find a single living person. And in the place of his house there was a Titan, although due to his structure he could not move. The question arose, how did he get there? And why? If the village was eaten by the Titans, then there were no human bodies left. Connie thought it was because all the villagers had escaped. That's just why then the Titans broke all the houses? In addition, they had to do it on horseback, but no one touched them. So that Connie would not worry once again, the squad decided to dwell on the version that everyone was alive and just ran away, and therefore they went on. But when Connie was about to leave, the Titan, who was on his house, tried to tell him something. And for some reason, this Titan very much resembled his mother. Then Reiner managed to convince him that all this is nonsense. After that, they returned to the detachment and began searching for a hole in the wall. But having run around the entire wall of Rose, they did not find anything suspicious and therefore decided to check everything again. But since it was already night, they decided to spend the night in a ruined castle. However, they did not have time to rest because a beast-like Titan passed nearby. He climbed over the wall of Rose and ordered the Titans to attack the soldiers. Of the entire detachment, only 4 had OPM, so they stayed to fight, and the cadets were ordered to hide inside. But it was not safe there either. When Reiner went to check the inside of the castle, he found a Titan who immediately attacked him. But thanks to other cadets, they were able to cope with it. Suddenly, Connie is attacked by another Titan, from which Reiner saves him at the cost of his hand. To save the others, he decides to jump down to the ground with it. But Connie helps him free himself from the Titan's mouth, after which they throw him down. However, the soldiers who fought the Titans did not last long and were all destroyed. The situation was hopeless because the castle began to break down and soon everyone was supposed to be eaten. At that moment, Ymir asks Connie to give her a weapon, after which she jumps directly to the Titans. In flight, she injures her arm and turns into a Titan, and Rainer and Berthold recognize her as a Titan who destroyed his close friend. She began to fight, protecting the cadets, but there were too many enemies, so Ymir destroys the tower on the Titans. However, this did not help much, and the Titans again attacked Ymir, starting to eat her. But at that moment, the Reconnaissance Corps arrived, which dealt with the Titans and then carried it to the wall. It also turns out that Krista is also not who she claims to be. Her real name is Historia, and she is an illegitimate child of the royal family, and therefore the preachers were going to destroy her. To survive, she took a new name for herself and entered the Cadet Corps. Meanwhile, Hange has figured out that there are two people among them who hail from the same place as Annie. They are Rainer and Berthold, which is why everyone thought that they were in cahoots. This was confirmed by Armin saying that during the attack of the Titan, Rainer and Berthold were told that Eren was in the right formation, and the Titan attacked from there. Therefore, it was decided to take them to the basement and arrest them there. But as they were all getting ready to leave together, Rainer called Eren to him and told him that he and Berthold were armored colossal titans. Initially, their goal was to exterminate people, but thanks to Eren, this can be avoided. All that is required of him is simply to go with them to their homeland. Eren pretended that they were joking, so he asked them to go to rest. However, Rainer decided to do everything now, so they turn into titans and grab Eren and Ymir. But Eren did not want to give up so easily, and therefore he also turns into a titan to fight with an armored titan. The Survey Corps also did not stand aside, so they attacked the colossal titan, but they failed to destroy it because it began to emit strong steam, which made it impossible to even approach it. Now everything depends only on Eren, but he could not break through Rainer because he was losing in pure strength. Realizing that he cannot be defeated at such a pace, Eren begins to use hand-to-hand combat, due to which he injures his arm. However, this did not stop Rainer. And since Eren is their target, Hanja asks him to damage the armored titan's legs in order to buy time and escape. But he couldn't get to his feet. Instead, he caught him in a hold and began cutting off the oxygen. Eren almost managed to defeat Rainer, but he began to push him forward, and when they reached the place, a colossal titan falls on them, causing Eren to lose. Rainer puts it in his mouth and runs away with it. After the fall of Berthold, those who were nearby were severely injured, and therefore could not interfere with them in any way. 5 hours had passed since their battle, and only after this time did the wounded begin to recover. Erwin and a scout corps arrived and began to ferry horses over the wall to chase Eren. Hanjin explained that after such a fight, Rainer and Berthold were very tired, and therefore they must rest somewhere. They clearly did not want to meet with the Titans, which means they had to sleep where the Titans would not get to them. Therefore, Hanja suggested that they stop in a forest of tall trees, and if they want to save Eren, they must get to him before night falls, because at night, the usual Titans stop being active. And for Rainer, this is a great opportunity to take Eren away unhindered. When Rainer took Eren away, he bit off his hands in a hurry, because of which they will have a considerable time to recover, and the same goes for Ymir. Rainer said that Eren has some kind of coordinate, because of which they simply have to deliver him to their homeland. However, in the 3 years that they were behind the walls as cadets, Rainer and Berthold began to perceive themselves as soldiers of the Reconnaissance Corps. So Rainer slowly went crazy from everything that was happening. They took Ymir with them because she was to be destroyed for what she had done. She was an orphan and was taken in by a priest who forced her to play the role of Queen Ymir, and it was he who gave her that name. A few years later, their sect was discovered, and all its members were sentenced to exile. They were artificially turned into titans and thrown outside the walls. In the guise of a titan, she spent 60 years until she met Rainer and Berthold, as well as their friend Marcel, whom she ate. But it turned out that Marcel possessed the strength of a giant jaw, because of which she was able to regain her human form. They were supposed to take Historia with them, because she too was an incredible value for their homeland, but they decided to do this later. Rainer asked Eren not to resist so that he would not destroy him, and at night they could safely reach the place. However, the Reconnaissance Corps and other guilds had already begun to approach them. Eren was not going to give up so easily, and even without arms he tried to destroy Rainer, because of which he had to capture him. Together with him and Ymir, they began to run away. However, Eimar wanted them to take Historia with them because she didn't want to leave her alone. Then, in order to be listened to, she began to interfere with Berthold and threaten him. They had to listen to her and resort to her plan. She became a Titan, and after waiting for Historia, she put it in her mouth and ran away with her. Rainer was already waiting for them, who, taking on the guise of an armored Titan, began to run away with them. Except Erwin had a plan in the first place. With the help of the military police, he lured other Titans, which he was going to send to Rainer. Due to the fact that Eimar wanted to take Historia with her, they could not break away and Mikasa had already caught up with them. But Eimar interfered with her in every possible way. True, Historia was able to force her not to touch Mikasa for the sake of her life. To protect Berthold and Eren, Rainer covered them with armored arms. But Mikasa and the other cadets climbed onto his arms and began to mentally put a lot of pressure on Berthold. Then he admitted that it was unbearable for him to destroy people, and he was very sorry for what he had done. But no matter how hard they try, he just can't give them Eren. At this moment, Erwin intervenes, who sent other Titans to them. It was a great opportunity for the soldiers to free Eren, so Erwin ordered everyone to run to the attack. But during this, the Titan wounded him very badly, injuring his arm. In order to pass through the Titans, Rainer had to remove his hands from Eren and Berthold. This is used by Armin, who began to put pressure on Berthold, saying that right now the Reconnaissance Corps is torturing Annie with incredible cruelty. Since he liked her very much, Berthold is furious. Erwin caught him in error and freed Eren, who was picked up by Mikasa, and began to run away with him. The Survey Corps completed their mission and were planning to retreat when Rainer suddenly started throwing Titans around, causing Eren and Mikasa to fall. When they came to their senses, they met a Titan who ate their mother 5 years ago. Since the guys were in a terrible state, Hannes decides to fight him. However, Eren wanted to destroy the Titan personally, but due to the fact that his hands had not yet been restored, there was no way he could become a Titan. Meanwhile, Hannes failed to destroy the Titan as he grabbed and ate it. From this, Eren falls into despair, although Mikasa was able to restore his mind. While in this state, his arms immediately recovered, and when the Titan tried to grab him, Eren dealt him a powerful blow. Without realizing it, he ordered other Titans to attack this Titan. Taking advantage of the moment, he grabs Mikasa and starts to run away. But on their way there was already Rainer, at whom Eren began to yell furiously. Thus he again orders the Titans to attack another Titan, thanks to which they successfully retreat. Eimar could seize the moment and return behind the walls with Historia, but she felt guilty for having eaten a friend of Rainer and Berthold, so she decided to help them and stay with them, even though she understood that she would most likely be destroyed. After this operation, less than half of the soldiers who were not destroyed protecting Eren returned, and therefore a reasonable question arose. Is it worth Eren for so many soldiers to be destroyed because of him? Meanwhile, Hange comes to the wounded Erwin along with Connie. They say that they were investigating what is happening in the village of Connie. Let there be no evidence yet, but most likely the Titans with whom they fought are people from the village of Connie, which means that all these years they have been fighting against people who have been turned into Titans. This news made Erwin smile, because even though it was terrible, but in this way they were closer to unraveling all the mysteries. Captain Levy's personal squad settled in a house outside the city to protect Eren and Historia. There, they practiced turning into Titans in order to close a hole in the wall with the help of strengthening the body. But due to his deplorable state, he could not show a worthy giant. Meanwhile, it turns out that the preacher Nick, who knew the secrets of the walls, was destroyed by someone. Hange went to the scene, but the military police did not want to let her near the corpse, saying that it was an ordinary robbery and such matters should not concern her. But she noticed that Nick's nails were torn off, which means that he was tortured before being destroyed, and most likely it was the military police who did it. She told the team about this and suggested that he suffered from revealing many secrets to Erwin. This could mean that the Metropolitan Police are on the hunt for the Intelligence Corps. At this moment, Levi receives a letter from Erwin, because of which he orders everyone to leave the house immediately, having previously destroyed all traces. They managed to escape just before the police attacked this house. It turns out that an order came from the capital to stop all the actions of the Reconnaissance Corps and extradite Eren and Historia alive. Levi decides to go with the whole team to Trost, the place where Nick was recently destroyed. It was too dangerous to go to the capital, but the commotion in Trost was just in their favor. In the city, Jan and Armin dressed up as Eren and Historia and were just captured. Levi and Mikasa came to their rescue, but since the kidnappers were too weak, Levi decided that his presence was not necessary. Before leaving, he warns Mikasa that they have new enemies in addition to the Titans, and from now on they will have to destroy people. Mikasa and the other scouts were able to free Jan and Armin with ease. At this time, the military attacked Levi and his team and immediately destroyed 2 scouts. The main attacker was called Kenny, and he and Levi have known each other since his childhood, but we will learn about their relationship a little later. In the meantime, Levi will have to run away from a large number of military men, along the way trying to find Eren and Historia, who were attacked and put to sleep by these military men. An interesting point is that these military used the new UPM. However, this UPM is absolutely useless against Titans, but it is incredibly effective against humans. And if now with their help they attack the Reconnaissance Corps, then they will be able to attack others. Levi interfered with Kenny in every possible way, and he even had to hide in a bar. This institution was immediately surrounded, and any attempt to get out of it will lead to its inevitable death. However, Levi was able to fight off Kenny and escape the bar with the help of a chair trick. A team arrived in time for him, and he told them that 3 scouts had already been destroyed. Therefore, if they want to save their comrades and not end up in a coffin themselves, then they must ruthlessly deal with everyone. Jean attacked the girl driving the wagon, but he could not destroy her, because of which she stood up and was ready to destroy Jane. But Armin saved him from death, who destroyed the girl without hesitation. However, they failed to save Eren and Historia. Such drastic changes hit Armin. The fact is that he managed to save Jane with his shot, because that girl herself could not destroy him. This means that Armin killed someone who, according to him, was much more human than himself. Only Levi was able to calm Armin with his own words. After that, they switched to the kidnapper, who turned out to be Demo Reeves, the same person who in the first season blocked the tunnel for people with his wagon. But in a difficult moment for the city, he helped people by giving them work in his company. And thanks to him, most of the city can now exist. The police ordered them to steal the guys, and since he could not complete the task, they would destroy him and set it up as an accident. Levi offered to cooperate with Erwin's plan, where they bring the military police to them, saying that they had kidnapped Eren and Historia. But when they were on the spot, they were instantly captured by the Reconnaissance Corps. Sainz and Ralph were taken prisoner, trying to find out why they need Historia and what is the secret of Rod Reese. The problem is that Sainz, who was brutally tortured, did not want to reveal even the slightest details to them at all, justifying this with loyalty to the king. Therefore, they decided to cheat and forced Ralph to read a pre-prepared text, according to which he allegedly already told everything, and in general, he always hated Sainz. From what he heard, Sainz was broken in thinking that they already knew everything. He told them all the secrets. They learned that Historia is the rightful heir to the throne, and she is being kept in the Reese house. We also learn about Historia's past. As a child, she was kept on a farm owned by Lord Reese. There she lived with her mother named Alma. She spent all her time reading books, without any contact with her daughter. Historia thought it was normal, until at some point she learned to read. Historia read from Alma's books about motherly love, and the relationship between parents and children, after which she tried to hug her mother. However, she, in turn, brushed her off, but Historia was glad about this. Alma hated her and completely dreamed of destroying her, so at one point she just went to live in another place. After breaching Maria's wall, she, along with Rod Reese, Historia's father, arrived at the farm to collect her. But when they went outside, they saw Kenny and his men. Alma began to scream that she had nothing to do with Historia, and that she was not her mother at all, so they decided to simply destroy her. And her last words were regrets that she gave birth to Historia at all. Then they were going to destroy Historia, but Reese offered to change her name and send her to live in another place. And after a long time, they still met, and for a reason. Before Eren was kidnapped, he managed to tell Hange how he overheard Emer and Berthold's conversation. They talked about how she got the power of a Titan by eating, being a brainless Titan, Comrade Berthold and Reiner, who originally had the powers of a giant. From this, they come to the conclusion that Eren is going to be fed to the royal family, which means he needs to be saved. Then Pixis comes to Erwin, to whom Erwin tells that he is going to depose the imposter king and put Historia on the throne. and he wants to do this without destroying people, making a bloodless coup. But if his calculations turn out to be wrong, then each participant in the coup will be hanged on the gallows. For such a bold decision, Erwin has the motivation. As a child, his father was a teacher, and in a history lesson, he told the children about how more than 100 years ago, people took shelter from the Titans by building walls. And surprisingly, they have no information about life before that. Little Erwin thought this was strange, and he asked his father about it, but for some reason he refused to answer. But when they came home, the father nevertheless decided to tell him about his hypothesis, according to which the king, in order to avoid problems, changed everyone's memory. Then Erwin considered it wild, and therefore began to retell the words of his father to his classmates, until at one moment he was heard by the military police. After that, his father did not return home, as supporters of the king had a hand in his death. In turn, Erwin swore an oath that by all means he would prove his father's hypothesis. He realized that the supporters of the king are not trying to save humanity at all. They are only concerned about their standard of living, and they will destroy anyone who dares to encroach on it. At this time, Kenny destroyed Dima Reeves as he foresaw his betrayal, and only Flegel, his son, survived that night. This destruction was pinned on Erwin, making him a common enemy. In addition to the destruction, he was accused of the most terrible article, according to which he allegedly betrayed the people in his own interests, which means that he and the rest of the intelligence corps will be brought before the court, and those whom they could not capture were put on the wanted list. Marlowe and Mitch were sent to look for them, who did not particularly want to look for them, because Marlowe questioned the actions of the police, believing that the intelligence corps was doing everything right. However, they are captured by Mikasa and Levi. They were not going to destroy them, and therefore Levi said that a little later he would let them go. Marlowe began to ask to join their team because he believes that he chose the wrong guild and is ready to do anything for justice and the intelligence corps. However, Levi does not have time to check it, so he refuses. But Gene begged to give him the opportunity to check the guys himself. He took Marlowe and Mitch far into the forest and began to threaten violence, while deliberately tripping so that Marlowe took the knife for himself. Then he allegedly took out a weapon and already began to threaten Marlowe with them. But he did not fight him, saying that he trusted him. Such an act convinced Gene, and he promised him that he would convince Levi to take him to the team. The military police then went on a manhunt for Flegel to kill the remaining witness. He was saved from death by Hange, who invited him to tell everyone the whole truth about the destruction of his father. As part of her plan, he lets the police catch him and asks them to tell the truth about the incident before he dies. Without guessing anything, they told how exactly they destroyed Dima Reeves, and that they planned to destroy his employees. The Reconnaissance Corps did not allow Flegel to be shot, and in addition to this, in the house in which everything happened, the townspeople found the whole truth and demanded justice. And Flegel decided to take matters into his own hands and not let the townspeople starve. He took his father's company under his leadership and gave the townspeople hope. Meanwhile, Erwin began to interrogate with prejudice. But every time he said that Preacher Nick didn't tell them anything. That's just the highest ranks in power have long decided to destroy Erwin, so they will hold a trial over him, after which they will hang him indicatively. Erwin tried to convince them, saying that he and the Reconnaissance Corps, with the help of Eren, could protect the people. After all, if they execute him, then no one will save them from the Titans, and all people will have to hide behind the walls of sin. Since there is no food left, it could lead to civil war. But the authorities did not care, and they announced their verdict on the execution of Erwin. But at that moment, they come to them with the news that the Wall of the Rose has been broken through. Pixis immediately ordered to organize a corridor and do everything possible to save the inhabitants. But the official, in turn, ordered to close the door to sin for any refugees, because if Erwin's words about the Civil War are true, then he will do everything to prevent it from happening, even at the cost of the lives of half the population. The military refused to follow his orders, and then Darius Zackley, the supreme commander of the army, entered the hall. He said that by their actions the officials violated the article under which they themselves accused Erwin. In addition, they crowned an imposter, which means they need to be arrested. Hange reported to the team that Erwin managed to organize a coup, and the authorities had not yet raised an uprising. In addition, they were able to prove that they were not involved in the destruction of Dima Reeves, so all charges against them were dropped, which means that the intelligence corps will still exist. Now the military is in power, but they are not going to hold it and want to put the rightful heir on the throne, Historia Reese. But for this, they must get to her, simultaneously freeing Eren, who at that time was in their captivity. Historia and Rod come to him, who says that now they will hold some kind of ceremony, and Kenny and his team will protect them from prying eyes. Eren was chained, and for a reason, because Rod tells how exactly the ceremony will take place. The fact is that the Reese from generation to generation passed on the power of the progenitor Titan. Rod's father, his brother Uri, possessing the power of the first king, was able to kill all the Titans, but for some reason he refused to do this and did not explain to his children the reason. They considered that receiving this power could change the consciousness of its bearer, and therefore decided that Uri should get it because Rod was afraid that he would not have enough willpower to fix everything. The power is transferred as follows. The hair is turned into a mindless Titan, and he, eating the bearer of this power, receives it for himself. So Uri, having eaten his father, inherited his power, as well as the memories of all his predecessors. Now he had in his hands a way to rid mankind of the Titans. However, akin to his father, he decided to leave everything as it is. It was the same with Historia's sister named Frida, who, after eating her uncle, gained incredible peace and a desire to leave everything as it was. Rod also says that they had a large family, but they were all killed by one person, namely Eren's father, Grisha Yeager. He went down to them in a cave and turned into a Titan. Frida did the same and began to protect her family as a progenitor Titan, which is in fact the most powerful Titan at all. However, due to her lack of experience, she still lost to Grisha, who had the power of an attacking Titan. After eating it, he mixed these powers and then destroyed the entire Reese family, except for Rod, who miraculously managed to escape. After that, Rod and Historia touch Eren, returning his and his father's memories to him. He began to read Grisha as a monster, because he destroyed the Reese family and stole their power from them. However, Historia can fix everything. If she eats Eren, she becomes essentially God and regains the memories of all her predecessors, including Frida, whom she loved very much. And this began to interfere with Kenny, who himself wanted to get this power. But having learned that in order to fully master it, one must be a descendant of Reese, he began to complicate the task of Rod for the sake of entertainment. Eren was injured by Kenny to turn into a Titan. He wanted to see the battle of the giants, but Eren did not turn into him. But on the contrary, in hysterics, he began to beg to eat him. However, Historia refuses to take the injection and runs to rescue Eren. And Levi's team had already arrived in time, which killed most of Kenny's team. In shock from what he saw, Rod licks the remains of the injection and begins to turn into a huge Titan. And with this, he began to destroy the cave, and everyone could die under the rubble. Eren grabbed the ampoule with armor written on it, and having drunk its contents, turned into a Titan, after which he began to build fortifications with his body. And with that, he saved his team. With power, he can easily patch up holes in walls. But now they have to save the inhabitants of Orwood, because it is to them that the Titan of the family, who has become a deviant, is heading. The problem is that they cannot evacuate the inhabitants because due to the fact that Rod is a deviant, he is heading towards a large crowd of people. And if they send them behind the wall of sinew, then the Titan will follow them, while breaking the wall of sinew, which simply cannot be allowed. Therefore, Erwin decided to let Rod get to the area and already there with the help of guns try to stop him. He crawled to there by dawn, after which they began to fire at him from the walls from the ground. However, due to the fact that they did not hit the back of the head, they did not cause much damage. The command decided to collect all the gunpowder, and with the help of Eren, shove it down his throat. Erwin decided to play on the fact that Rod's body is very hot, so the gunpowder will be enough to explode. His plan worked, and Rod's scraps scattered around the city, but they had to be cut so that he did not have time to recover. And Historia put the final point in the destruction of the family, destroying her father in front of the inhabitants, which earned them great respect, since she put their lives above all else. After which she declared herself the rightful mistress of these walls, namely the queen. At the award ceremony, all the residents were incredibly happy that his rightful heir was taking the throne. Meanwhile, Levi finds a half-dead Kenny, who, after the destruction of the cave, is the only one from his team left alive. Kenny had a grandfather who didn't have long to live, Before he passes away, he tells Kenny the reason why everyone hates the name Ackerman so much. The fact is that Reis can control the minds of people, but their powers do not work on Asians and the Ackerman family, which is why they began to be exterminated. That is why any owner of the Ackerman surname never felt safe. From overflowing anger, Kenny decided to destroy Uri, but he became a Titan and did not let him do it. However, he did not execute him for the attempt on himself, but rather being a progenitor Titan, knelt before him, asking for forgiveness for the extermination of his family name. From such, Kenny was shocked and asked to serve him. After that, he went down to the underground city, where he went to the brothel to meet with a certain Kushal. But she went to another world from an unknown disease. Entering her room, Kenny sees her dying son, namely Levi. Kenny wasn't heartless enough to leave a child to its fate, but he wasn't good enough to be a father either. Therefore, he raised him in the way he considers necessary for survival, arguing to him that in this world, strength decides absolutely everything. After that, he leaves him and returns to Uri, where he dreams of obtaining his power, hoping that this will change him and make him like him. He also tells Levi that he managed to steal an ampule from Rod, thanks to which he can turn into a Titan. But if he really wanted this, he would have become one long ago. At the end, he says that in fact he is the brother of Kushal, that is, he is his uncle, and before his death, he gives him his ampule. 2 months have passed since the coronation of Historia. Eren's new fortification ability allowed humans to create new weapons against the Titans. Hange designed a guillotine that would allow them to destroy the Titans without having to fight them. During lunch, Eren realizes that in his father's memories, he clearly saw the man who is Shardis. They immediately advance to him to get at least some information from him. However, Shardis says that he does not know anything useful, but he can tell a little about Grisha. One day, outside the walls, he met a man who introduced himself as Grisha Yeager. To his surprise, he remembered nothing but his name and the fact that he was a doctor. He asked Shardis to take him to the hospital to try to help them. Just at that time, an epidemic began in the city, from which it was Grisha who saved everyone. There he met his future wife, who then bore him Eren. After the attack of the Titans, he, along with Grisha, went to Eren, who told them that Carla had been eaten. To this, Grisha replied that Eren must avenge his mother. He took him to the forest, where he turned him into a Titan, after which he let him eat himself so that he would gain the power of a Titan. And the unconscious Eren was returned to the guys by Shardis. And that's all he can tell them. We also learned that when Eren was trying to get into the cadets, it was Shardis who broke his belt to try to save him. But Eren's desire took over him. Meanwhile, at a meeting of the Intelligence Corps, Erwin convinces everyone of the incredible importance of Grisha Yeager's cellar. They must gather soldiers and set off to fight off Maria's walls in order to try to restore life there and allow people to return home, as well as get to the basement that Erwin is so eager to reach. Everyone agreed with his plan, but Levi tried to convince Erwin to stay put while he and the Reconnaissance Corps tried to carry out the plan. Erwin is very important to humanity, and therefore he should never go to another world. Therefore, Levi promises to hurt both his legs if he disobeys him. However, Erwin, despite his not the most vigorous state, still wants to go to Sigantina. Firstly, with him the soldiers will feel more confident. And secondly, he wants to be there when the secret of the basement is revealed, with which in the end, Levi agreed. Preparations began for the offensive, and the Reconnaissance Corps began to ferry horses over the walls. All this was watched by the townspeople, who for the first time in the history of the Scouts saw them off as heroes. The Reconnaissance Corps headed for Sigantina and got there by dawn. To their surprise, no one saw them. There were no signs of life in these walls. They did not even see the Titans. According to the plan, Eren gets to the gap in the far wall and closes it with his body. However, there was no response after that. But on the ground, Armin noticed an already cooled teapot, which means they were still preparing for their arrival. According to Erwin, they got from the forest to the walls in 2 minutes. And judging by the fact that the kettle had already cooled down, they were noticed at least 5 minutes before arrival. That is, the enemies have a scout whom they did not notice. It was ordered to search all the houses in search of Reiner and Berthold, but there was no hint of their presence anywhere. And then Armin suggested that they might be hiding in the walls. So Erwin ordered everyone to follow Armin and search the walls. His theory was confirmed, and they found Reiner in the wall, who instantly destroyed the scout, but Levi was wounded in response. True, he did not have time to destroy him before turning into a Titan, since Reiner was able to redirect his consciousness to other parts of the body. Behind him appeared the beast-like and his Titans. Among them was a Titan who carried some kind of load. Erwin thought that this Titan was also intelligent, that is, he was a man, and that it was he who had spotted them in the forest. The beast-like Zeke threw a stone at them, and with his throw blocked the inner gate so that the reconnaissance corps could not escape from them on horseback. Then he sent the smallest Titans to attack, whose task was to destroy all the same horses. Thus, he, like Erwin, expects that this battle will put an end to their confrontation. Reiner also arranged a hunt for horses, who began to climb the wall in order to deal with them later. However, he is interrupted by Eren, who transforms into a Titan and starts running away from him. Understandably, Eren was their main target and Reiner thought that he just wanted to get over the other wall and escape from them. But why does he then turn into a Titan so close to him, and not do it directly behind that wall? Reiner realized that this was a trap, but after calculating all the risks, he decided to abandon the unfortunate horses and go after Eren. Levi's team must help him, and the task of himself and the entire reconnaissance corps, including recruits, is to stand outside and protect the horses. Eren turned into a Titan in order to fight Reiner, since he had been practicing his new ability to create armor all this time. The only problem is that so far they have not seen Berthold, considering that the last time he fought while inside a wall, Armin offered to fight Reiner away from these walls so that they could not be interfered with if anything happened. Eren's task is to try to damage Reiner's armor as much as possible, so that other scouts will then take care of him. While preparing for the attack, Hange managed to create a new weapon, which she named the Thunder Spears. They are designed specifically to deal with armored titanium, and their essence is that these spears explode upon impact, and the explosion is so strong that it creates noise from itself like thunder, which is why they were called that. Reiner was absolutely certain that those spears would not do any damage, but to his surprise, first they deprived him of his eyes, after which they plunged these spears into his back, which beat him well. And repeating this action, they wounded him incredibly badly, but still did not destroy him. And with the last of his strength, he was able to utter a cry, after which the animal-like threw a barrel at them, inside of which was Berthold. With his transformation, he was supposed to destroy everyone, but when he saw the exhausted Reiner, he first hurried to him. He told him that he would soon turn into a colossal, so he gives Reiner a little time so that he can lie on his back and protect himself from the explosion, which he managed to do at the moment when Berthold had turned into a Titan. With an explosion, he destroyed a huge part of the city, and destroying everything in his path, he headed for the inner gate. And if he gets to them, he will set fire to the houses on the other side, which means the scouts will be surrounded on both sides. In addition to this, Zeke began to act, which broke the cobblestones and threw them at the scouts, which quickly destroyed a huge part of them. And as a result of the entire reconnaissance corps, only recruits survived: Erwin, Levi, and his team, and even then not at full strength. Erwin was cornered and had to decide what to do. The main goal of his life is to prove his father's theory, and for this he simply has to look into Grisha's basement. He can do it right now, but then absolutely everyone will die. Or he can abandon his dream and lead the recruits in an attack on the beast-like. During this attack, the recruits and himself are guaranteed to go to another world, but it will allow Levi to get to Zeke and fight him. He could not decide what to do, so Levi helps him with this. He tells him to put aside his dream and lead his final attack, and Levi in turn promises him to destroy Zeke. During his address, Erwin directly tells the recruits that they will definitely die today, but they can do it in different ways. The soldiers are free to stay here and wait for the beast-like to end their lives, or they can proudly sacrifice themselves with him, so that Levi can destroy Zeke. Absolutely everyone respected their commander, and therefore even those who were madly afraid of death agreed to give their lives for him. Erwin galloped forward, but didn't expect that much. He tried to catch him, but Levi repeatedly injured his limbs, until at one point he knocked him to the ground and pulled Zeke out of the titanium. Levi hoped that Erwin would be alive, and then he could inject him with a serum, thanks to which he would eat Zeke and fully recover. But this was prevented by the Titan carrier, who grabbed Zeke and ran away with him in order to destroy him faster. With this, he completely burned Armin, and practically nothing remained of him. And there they are met by Zeke, who intended to take Berthold with him. but Eren said that he would rather destroy it than give it to him. In response, Zeke said that he understands Eren's suffering, because they both became victims of their father Grisha Jaeger, but he did not have time to finish, because Levi had already come for him. Before leaving, Zeke stated that he would definitely save Eren. At this moment, Eren realizes that Armin is still alive, which means that if you turn him into a Titan and feed Berthold to him, then he can still be saved. Levi was about to give him the ampoule, when suddenly the only survivors behind the wall rise up to them, namely the recruit and Erwin, who is badly injured and who can also be saved if the ampoule is injected into him. At this time, the captured Rainer gives Hange a letter so that she can then give it to his beloved Historia. So far, they are not going to destroy him, but there is no point in torturing him, since he will not open up anyway. True, they decided to still leave him alive in order to try to get at least some information about the Titans from him. Except Zeke thought otherwise, so the transport Titan grabs Rainer and takes him away. At this time, the bodies of the dying Erwin and Armin were having a heated debate who should be injected with the serum to save. Eren and Mikasa begged Levi to inject it into Armina. However, he himself and everyone else believe that it is Erwin who needs to be saved because he is much more valuable to humanity. No matter how much Eren asks to save Armin, Levi still decides to help his old comrade. But before injecting him with the serum, he realizes that Erwin has already suffered enough. On the way to his dream, he lost many fighters and survived a real hell with the Titans. And after so much time, he finally found peace. And Levi did not want to return his friend back to hell, so he rethought everything and decides to save Armin, who, having turned into an unreasonable Titan, ate Berthold and acquired his strength. 4 hours have passed since the battle, and only 9 people survived from the entire reconnaissance corps, while the remaining 199 were destroyed. However, despite the loss, they must do what they came here for, namely, go to Grisha's basement. It turns out that the key Eren got doesn't fit the basement door, but it does fit perfectly with the keyhole in the table. Opening the secret box, they found a double bottom, where exactly were the very books that Grisha so badly wanted to give to Eren. First, they pulled out a previously unseen photo, which said that humanity outside the walls was not exterminated at all. On the contrary, they live much better than they do. In the book written by Grisha, we learn about his past. Grisha was born in Marley as an Indian, and one day he and his sister ran to look after the airship. And in order to get a better look at it, you need to get out of their ghetto territory, and for this you need special passes. Grisha decided to run without them, and soon, being next to the airship, they met the military who did not find passes from them. For this, punishment is due, and Grisha decided to serve it for 2 at once, for which he was attacked with passion. His sister was taken away from him under the pretext that they would take her home. But when he tried to find her, he found her body in the river. And those same military men began to repeat to his family that her death was an accident, and it was Grisha who was to blame for it. So they should better explain to him the rights of their people. His mother was filled with grief, and his father did nothing but lay under the officers. After that, he began to educate Grisha against Eldia with an even greater share of propaganda. The book also explains what Eldia is. Behind everything is a girl named Emer Fritz, who almost 2,000 years ago acquired the power of the progenitor by making a deal with the devil. Her family began to rule Eldia, but after 13 years she left for another world, and her power was distributed among her 9 children. With the help of the power of the Titans, they waged military operations against the Marleys, who ruled this continent from ancient times. As a result, 9 Titans won and created their empire. However, internecine wars began between the Eldians and the Marleys, but with the help of the forces of the progenitor, they managed to maintain order. After 1,700 years, the power of this Titan passed to King Karl Fritz, who decided to abandon his sinful people and conflicts with other countries. Charles also renounced his power, and without a progenitor, it was impossible to maintain peace. The Marleys rebelled against the Eldians in a great war. During the battle, they were able to get the power of 7 of the 9 Titans, which turned the outcome of the battle in their favor. Karl Fritz took as many Eldians as he could and went to Paradise Island, where he took refuge behind 3 walls. Those Eldians who could not escape became a lower-class people living in a guarded ghetto under constant oppression. Karl Fritz changed his surname to Reese and, using the coordinate, deprived people of the memory of the past. made everyone think that humanity was exterminated behind the walls by the Titans. The Marleys, with the help of the power of the Titans, were the main country, until its neighbors, with the help of technology, began to catch up with their military power. Other countries did not touch Paradise because Karl promised them that if they attacked him, then the Titans in the walls would destroy all countries. It's time to return to Grisha, who is already 18 years old and who inherited his father's clinic. And during one of the receptions, Grisha noticed a strange cross in one of the patients. The patient said that this was a sign of a patriot, after which he began to tell him exactly how his sister had gone to another world. It turns out that he has an informant in the government, and he was informed that the same military man who took Grisha's sister home actually fed her to the dogs. Upon learning the truth, Grisha vowed to avenge her, after which he joined the rebels. In their ranks, he meets Dina Fritz, the last representative of the royal family. After a year of dating, they got married, and later she bore him a son, whom they named Zeke. After a couple of years, it turns out that the Marleys announced the recruitment of children to become cadets, and some of them will then receive the power of the Titans in order to attack Paradise Island. The rebels had high hopes for Zeke, thinking that he would help them revive Eldia. But when Zeke was 7 years old, he surrendered absolutely everyone to the military. All the rebels had their fingers injured during torture, after which they were turned into mindless Titans and sent to the walls. The same fate befell Dean. And turning her into a Titan, we find out that it turns out that she is the Titan that Eren's mother ate first, and then Haynes. Of all the rebels, only Grisha survived. The military man who had destroyed his sister was about to throw him off to be devoured by the Titans. But another military man who beat little Grisha prevented this and threw off the offender to the Titan. The name of Grisha's savior is Eren Kruger, and he, turning into an attacking Titan, attacked all the military. He told Grisha that he saved him for a reason. All this time, it was he who was the same person from the government who helped the rebels, and he deliberately aroused hatred for the Marleys in Grisha so that he would fulfill an important mission. He needed to infiltrate Paradise and take the power of the progenitor Titan from Reese. It would seem, why doesn't Eren Kruger do it himself? But as it turns out, all people who have received the power of a Titan are cursed, and they have no more than 13 years to live. If the bearer does not have time to transfer his power, then it goes to the newborn Emirian, and these are those who live within these walls. Therefore, Grisha must turn into a Titan and eat him in order to finally complete such an important mission. Having learned Grisha's past, we return to Eren, who, along with Mikasa, was imprisoned for daring to disobey the order of the commander. But since they are still heroes, they are released ahead of time and sent for an audience. On it, Hange sums up everything that happens, saying that in fact they have new enemies and stronger than ordinary Titans, namely the whole world. Judging by the books, the enemy is afraid that the Emirians will again want to take over the whole world, so they want to destroy them. A letter is then delivered to Historia, which turns out to be from Ymir. It was written in it that an inevitable death awaits her, but she does not regret her decision. The only thing that haunts her is that she did not have time to marry Historia. After that, the award ceremony begins, and when Eren touched Historia's hand, he began to see Grisha's memories, and it turns out that he was not at all going to ruthlessly destroy the Reis family. On the contrary, he asked Frida to destroy the Titans near the walls so that they would not have time to eat her relatives. A whole year has passed since these events. The refugees were able to return home after the attack on Trost. The reconnaissance corps, or what was left of it, went beyond the walls to the sea in order to then meet their new enemy. If you want to continue, then write about it in the comments.